Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging headfirst into, well, a single profoundly surprising biblical image.
Hmm.
Yeah, one that really flips our expectations of, divine power right on their head.
Definitely catches you off guard.
It does. So our mission today is pretty focused. We're unpacking Hosea chapter 5, verse 12.
The moth verse.
Exactly. Where God says quite simply, I am like a moth to Ephraim.
Right.
And we really want to figure out why. Why would the ultimate source of, stability and strength
Yeah.
describe himself as something so, well, small,
Yeah.
fragile, even secretly destructive? Not a lion, not a fire.
But a moth, yeah. It creates that immediate dissonance, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That clash in your mind.
Totally.
Because our usual pictures of God are, well, huge.
Monumental.
Like a fortress, a mountain,
Yeah.
an unbreakable shield, right? An eternal refuge, permanent things.
Mhm.
Yet here, the Redeemer likens himself to this tiny, quiet insect. It's the very opposite of a flood or an earthquake.
Such a contrast.
It is. It's almost an image of weakness, paradoxically,
Mm.
used to convey a profound, calculated, and often unseen kind of destruction.
Okay, so set the stage for us. What's the context here in Hosea?
Well, this declaration is just steeped in the pain of a broken covenant. You have Israel, specifically the northern kingdom, Ephraim, they'd been chosen, set apart,
Right.
but they actively turned their backs on that relationship. They started mingling with foreign nations, adopting their idols, basically substituting the hard work of faith.
For the easy road.
Exactly, the easy road of just blending in syncretism. And so this judgment, this moth action, it isn't some flash of impulsive anger.
Okay.
It's presented as a necessary, precise, even highly targeted correction. The goal wasn't just punishment. It was to shake them out of their self-made ruin and ultimately bring them back home.
Okay, let's really unpack the mechanism then. The moth itself. Why a moth? What does God actually mean by being like a moth to Ephraim? What's happening?
The moth represents this mechanism of slow, silent, internal decay. It's like God is allowing their national stability, their strength, their wealth to slowly, almost imperceptibly, just waste away.
Imperceptibly, that's key.
It is. Think about how a clothes moth actually works. The adult moth doesn't rip the garment apart itself.
Right, it lays eggs.
Exactly. It deposits its larvae, and they are the hidden damage. They eat away at the fibers, little by little, from the inside out.
So the garment could be hanging there looking perfectly fine.
Looking fine in the closet, yeah.
Yeah.
Until someone maybe brushes against it or tries to put it on, and the whole thing just disintegrates, falls apart.
Wow. Okay, so that distinction, sudden external force versus gradual internal erosion, that seems critical here.
It's the core insight, I think. This wasn't an immediate catastrophe for Ephraim. It wasn't a lightning
Well,
strike.
not a quick invasion necessarily.
No, it wasn't the quick snap of a political alliance breaking overnight. It was more like the slow failure of confidence, the armies weakening over time, the political structure becoming brittle, the national morale just sort of vanishing.
So it took time for them to even notice.
Exactly. The prophet Hosea makes it clear the damage wasn't visible right away. And it takes time for the weight of the garment, the nation itself, to expose that structural failure. By the time they finally looked up and realized, hey, we're in serious trouble, they couldn't really point to one single external cause, like an invader.
Because the problem was internal.
Precisely. The destruction had been happening from within, enabled by their own spiritual choices, their abandonment of the covenant, and God was allowing it specifically for their awakening.
That raises a tough question, though. If the goal is awakening, wouldn't something, faster, more visible, like that consuming fire you mentioned earlier, wouldn't that be almost kinder? Why the slow, hidden decay?
That's a really important point about the nature of this kind of correction. Swift destruction, like a fire, often wipes out the possibility of repentance. It's final. The moth is subtle, I think, because the point isn't annihilation. It's self-diagnosis. God uses a method that sort of forces the people to trace the ruin back
Back to themselves.
back to its true internal source, their own choices, their neglect. If he'd sent an immediate, obvious enemy, what would they have done?
Blamed the enemy.
Right. They blame the enemy, rally the troops, miss the point entirely. But when the fabric you're wearing it just falls apart in your hands,
Yeah.
you eventually have to realize the problem wasn't outside. The enemy, the moth, was living in the closet with you all along.
Okay, that makes sense. To really feel the shock of this, let's get specific about the history. You mentioned Ephraim. Talk about the time of Jeroboam II. They weren't exactly struggling then, were they?
Not at all. Jeroboam II's reign, this is roughly mid-8th century BC. It ushered in this era of serious prosperity for the northern kingdom. It's often called Israel's golden age, at least since the kingdom divided.
A golden age, so things look good on the surface.
Extremely good. Their borders expanded, trade routes were flourishing, the aristocracy was living in, well, incredible luxury. The prophets talk about houses of ivory, winter houses, summer houses,
Wow.
feasting, comfort like they hadn't seen before. They really believed they were strong, maybe even invincible. The economy was booming. Treaty seemed secure.
And it's fascinating, isn't it, how that very wealth, that apparent blessing, actually became the thing that undid them.
That's the tragic irony. Amid all this ease, this comfort, the Israelite heart just drifted.
Yeah.
The text makes it painfully clear what happened. Comfort itself became their primary idol,
Comfort as an idol.
and convenience became their guiding god. They started seeking pleasure, status, personal ease, more than they sought holiness or justice.
So they started cutting corners, spiritually speaking.
Definitely. They found imitating the culture of the wealthy pagan nations around them. Nations that often prioritized, physical indulgence, power displays, immediate gratification. Well, that was just easier.
Easier than what?
Easier, more convenient than maintaining the sometimes stringent, demanding ethical and spiritual standards of God's law. Obedience takes effort. Justice takes effort. Worship takes focus.
And convenience doesn't.
Convenience whispers, there's an easier way. And this reveals their core error, the fundamental mistake they made.
Which was?
They completely forgot the source of their success. They looked at the overflowing granaries, the successful trade deals, the military stability.
And thought, we did this.
Exactly. They credited their own savvy, their diplomatic maneuvering, their worldly strategies. They replaced covenant faithfulness with just human confidence.
Relying on alliances, maybe?
Oh, absolutely. They'd lean on treaties with big powers like Egypt, or they'd flirt with the rising Assyrians, thinking their military position or their clever politics was the source of their peace and prosperity, not their relationship with God.
And that's when God becomes the moth.
That is precisely where God assumes that role. As their spiritual fibers weakened from neglect, the material prosperity they were celebrating, the very stuff they thought they had earned and secured, it started to become fragile. Peace was slowly replaced by anxiety, the anxiety of maintaining all that wealth. The treaties they relied on started to fray and fail.
So the holes appear.
Metaphorically, yes. The holes appeared first in the moral fabric of their society. You see the prophets railing against corruption, injustice, the oppression of the poor.
Yeah?
That was the fabric weakening internally. And only after that moral decay did the physical, national fabric begin to give way entirely. The structure couldn't hold.
Okay, so we've seen the history, the mechanism. Now let's pivot. How does this ancient kind of disturbing metaphor speak to us, to you, the listener, today?
Yeah.
Because Ephraim's story feels like a really powerful mirror, doesn't it? Especially living in a world that just prioritizes ease, automation, convenience above almost everything else.
It's incredibly relevant.
Yeah.
In many ways, spiritually speaking, we are living in Jeroboam II's world, surrounded by comforts, conveniences, apparent security.
And we fall into the exact same track. It's almost instinctual. When life gets comfortable, when things are convenient, we start trading the difficult things, maybe the holy things, for what just feels pleasant or requires less effort. We quietly neglect the parts of our devotion, our character, that require, well, friction.
And the modern applications are often way more subtle than, say, skipping church or forgetting to pray one night.
Right, it's not always blatant.
Yeah.
No.
The moth of complacency today nibbles at maybe higher stakes decisions, too.
Yeah.
Think about a professional navigating a really competitive career landscape.
Okay.
Where does convenience start to trump ethical integrity? Maybe it's trading meticulous honesty for just a slightly convenient omission on a report, or deciding, it's easier not to have that difficult but necessary conversation with a colleague or employee.
Letting the problem just fester quietly.
Because confrontation is uncomfortable.
Exactly. Or think about our commitments. People might say, well, I'll donate money, sure, but I won't actually volunteer my time. It's just easier to write a check. Or I'll consume content online about my faith or my values, but I won't get involved in messy, difficult community work where I might actually be challenged or have to sacrifice comfort.
Spot on. That is spiritual laziness in action. We are subtly choosing comfort over character development, convenience over conviction.
And that connects back to the moth thriving in darkness. That's a crucial insight.
Yeah.
The spiritual darkness where this decay happens isn't usually like outright malice or evil intention.
Right. It's often just distraction, busyness, the avoidance of anything that feels like friction or requires discipline.
So it looks fine on the surface,
Hmm.
a busy life, a successful career, a full calendar.
Can already be hollowed out underneath. The integrity might be compromised, the joy might be fading, the spiritual strength might be leaching away.
And we create the conditions for that decay.
Yes. When we start to ignore the difficult commandments, when we actively avoid carving out time for stillness, for genuinely seeking God's presence, or when we stop allowing Him to deal with the specific sins or character flaws that create discomfort in us, that's when we create the perfect environment for the moth.
Spiritual darkness, lack of maintenance.
Exactly. And the result is this slow loss of joy, loss of strength, loss of real purpose. It's not usually a sudden spiritual attack. It's quiet erosion.
But the source material, Hosea, it does give us good news here, right? It's not just about decay.
Oh, absolutely. There's profound hope. What's fascinating is the duality you see in God's nature within the text itself.
Without so.
The same God who describes himself as the moth, the one who allows the tearing, the decay, precisely to force us to examine ourselves,
Yeah.
is also revealed as the healer, the mender, the restorer. The very hand that tears, in a sense, to get our attention is the same hand that wants to bind up the wounds and restore.
So the moth isn't the final word.
Not at all. In fact, this correction, this allowing of decay, is presented ultimately as an act of deep, severe love.
Love. How is letting things fall apart loving?
Because he refuses to let us remain functional on the outside, but hollow on the inside. He loves us too much to let us stay comfortably numb in spiritual slumber.
So we shouldn't despise the moth, so to speak.
We shouldn't despise the discomfort it brings. When things start to feel frayed, when that quiet decay leads to noticeable problems, it's actually a sign that God is actively intervening. He's trying to save us from ourselves, from settling for less.
And the path back, the
Yeah.
restoration, Hosea talks about that too.
Beautifully simple, really.
Mm.
It boils down to repentance and return. Turning back, if we return to him, acknowledge the decay and its source,
Mm-hmm.
he actively restores what the moth has eaten away. That's the promise.
So it's about replacing that fragile fabric, the one we built ourselves.
Exactly. When we were relying on, let's call it worldly confidence, that fragile fabric of our own wealth, our status, our cleverness, our comfort,
Yeah.
that material was always destined to decay eventually. It's not permanent. The invitation is to receive a new garment,
A durable garment.
the durable garment of his righteousness, his strength. It's built on things like obedience, humility, trust, grace. It's a fabric that doesn't deteriorate because its threads are sourced in something eternal, not just temporal comfort or human effort.
So moving from convenience back to conviction, essentially.
That's a great way to put it. That's what it looks like in daily life. When you have that durable garment, your reliance shifts. Your ethical backbone becomes firm, not because you're afraid of getting caught, but because your confidence comes from seeking what's right, what's holy.
Not just from maintaining a comfortable status quo.
Precisely. It's the huge difference between feeling temporarily good because, say, your bank account is full or your life is easy, and feeling deeply purposeful because you know you are living in alignment with an enduring, true, moral reality, even when it's hard.
Okay, so that's the surprising takeaway here. This really destructive image of the moth is actually, well, it's a signpost.
A signpost of God's intense care, yeah. Urging us fiercely sometimes to shift back to genuine, active faith, which is often difficult over just settling for passive, comfortable complacency
He'd rather have us uncomfortable and awake?
than comfortable and asleep spiritually. That seems to be the message.
Wow. Powerful stuff.
It is. And maybe that leaves us with a final thought, something for you to mull over this week as you reflect on this whole moth metaphor.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, since we've established the moth thrives in that spiritual darkness, that lack of attention,
Yeah.
and it silently hollows out what might look successful or fine on the surface.
Right.
Maybe ask yourself, what quiet, convenient habit in your life, perhaps a small ethical shortcut you take at work, maybe a relationship boundary you've let slide simply for ease, or even a difficult responsibility you keep deferring because it's uncomfortable, might actually be creating the perfect conditions right now for decay underneath. And related to that, what structure, what success, what comfort in your life are you currently crediting only to your own worldly strategies? That might actually require some urgent spiritual maintenance and perhaps a recognition of a deeper source.